Eruvin, Perek Bet Mishnah Vav, second chapter, 6th Mishnah. Yesterday we dealt with a fence around a garden. And we say a fence around the garden has to have 70 by 70. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about it. 70 amma on 70 amma. And then we discussed 100 by 50, is it good, not good, all these calculations. Mishnatenu ze yamshech HaMishnah HaKodemet. This Mishnah is a continuation of the previous Mishnah about the Gina and the Kerkaf, the storage area or the Gina or the garden. Amar Rabbi Eli, said Rabbi Eli, Shamati Rabbi Eliezer, I've heard from Rabbi Eliezer, ve'afilu hi kebeit kur. It says all the 70 by 70 that you guys say it's the maximum, otherwise you cannot not allowed to carry. Nonsense. Rabbi Eliezer said it's even allowed to be much bigger than that. What's much bigger? A beit kur. Afilu hagina wa karkaf gadol kebeit kur. Even if it is as big as kebeit kur. Hainu, how much is a kur? Shetach she'efshar lizroa bo beit kur tvua. It's an area where you can have a beit kur of tvua. You can plant in it a lot of wheat. Shehu 30 se'ah. This is 30 se'ah, which is how much? It's 75,000 square amot. Yeah, which is like 30 times the area that we have before. Yeah. Mutar letaltel ba. It says you're still allowed to carry in such an area. In other words, you're allowed to enclose a very large area. Why? It says, if you bring, as long as you make a mechitzot, you're good. Even though there are no people living inside such a thing. There's no structures in it.
Dwelling place.
Yeah, even there's no dwelling place. And we're going to continue, once we heard from Rabbi Eli, what he heard from Rabbi Eliezer, he's going to tell you other things he heard from Rabbi Eliezer. Nothing to do with us. Yeah? V'chen shamati mimeno, and also I heard from him, from whom? From Rabbi Eliezer. Anshei chatzer sheshachat echad mehem velo yirev. You have people living in a courtyard, like 5 families, let's say, in the sharing courtyard, and one of them did not give his food to be placed in one place. He did not. 4 of them did, 1 of them didn't. So this is, I heard the rule about it from Rabbi Eliezer. It says what? Shelo natan chelko be'iruv hachatzer. He did not give his part, he did not give his food. והרי הוא אוסר על כל שאר הדיירים להביא מבתיהם לחצר. So now this guy, they go out on Shabbos and they can't use the courtyard because he is not, it's his also, it's his property also, and because the Rabbanim, the rabbi says he has to make an Eruv, and Eruv means he has to bring food, and he didn't bring the food, now nobody can use the courtyard. So he says, what do you do in such a situation? So he says, I heard from Rabbi Eliezer what you can do. What can you do? אם בשבת, להוציא בתים לחצר, אם בשבת ביטל את רשותו שבחצר לשאר הדיירים, so he says to them, you want to carry? He says, I'm not interested in this nonsense. You guys want to carry, I don't care about your rabbis, your whatever, I am whatever the reason is. Maybe he forgot, maybe he doesn't want, I don't care what the reason is. So they tell him, look, we can't do it. So at least, you know what you should do to us? Nullify your portion to us. We can just ask him, look, just say that this portion for us is nullified. Nullify it for us. Make it like our own. In other words, say it like you don't own part of the thing. When it comes to carrying, you don't own it.
So he's not giving up his partition. He's giving it to them.
What do you mean his partition?
He's not.
It's a partnership. Right now, the courtyard is a partnership. It says, give away your partnership. Okay. That's what we tell him. Say you're not part of the partnership. That's what we're telling him. Okay. Say you're not a
You
partner.
have no right in this
Oh,
court right
you-
now, in a way.
You know what it's like? In stocks, sometimes when you have a certain percentage of the company, you have a right of vote. You have a right to vote. So you tell him, we know you have percentage and you have the right to vote, give away your right to vote. This is what they tried to do to Elon Musk. You remember? When he was buying Twitter, they told them, we're not going to give you the right to vote though. You can buy it without the right. So this is exactly what's happening over here. It's the same idea. So what happens in such a case? So, לא ירב, ביתו אסור מלהכניס ומלהוציא לו. So since he doesn't admit he didn't give food, so when it comes to his house, he's not allowed to take things from his house to the courtyard and from the courtyard to his house.
Because he excluded himself.
Oh, but it's going to be funny. It's going to be,
It's not,
yeah, but it's going to be funny on the other side. They are allowed to take things from his house to the courtyard and from their house to his house. הואיל הוא ביטל את רשותו, since he nullified his partnership in the courtyard, אנו אומרים שמן הסתם ביטל להם אף ביתו. We're going to say, it's like, as we're going to look at it, is he doesn't exist anymore. He's not there. Even the house, his house is not there anymore. ואף על פי שמותר לו להכניס ולהוציא מבתיהם לחצר. So now look at what happens. He can go to your yard, to your house, and take out from your house to the courtyard, and from my house to the courtyard. משום שנעשה כוח אצלם, because you're visiting right now. You're like a visitor. מכל מקום אסור לו להכניס ולהוציא מביתו לחצר, but from his house to his courtyard he's not allowed to. So he can do it from my house, but he doesn't have to do it from his house. שלא יהיה נראה כאילו חוזר בו מביטולו ומחזיק שוב ברשותו. Because if we're going to allow him, it looks like he's actually part of the Eruv now, and that's not our purpose. אבל להם מותר, but they're allowed to do whatever. For them it's regular, they can go the whole thing, from his house, from their house, it doesn't matter. לשאר התיירים מותר להכניס ולהוציא מביתו. Everybody else is allowed to use his house. So that's one thing. And another thing I heard from him. וכן שמעתי ממנו, and also I heard from him, שיוצאים באקרבנים בפסח, that when it comes to Pesach and you want to eat maror, the special things that are maror, for example, we use lettuce, or we use horseradish for maror. So Rabbi Eliezer says, I also heard from Rabbi Eli that you're allowed to use akravanim בפסח. Akravanim is a type of weed, yeah? משום מרור, ידעתי בסדר, וחזרתי על כל תלמידיו של רבי אליעזר. And Rabbi Eli says, I remember the class. He says, I remember this class, and when I tried to remind all the other students, you were there, says, don't you remember all these rules I just said? חזרתי על תלמידיו, I went around all his students, וביקשתי לי חבר. I wanted to find somebody that also remembered that Rabbi Eliezer said all the things. שיאמר שאף הוא שמע שלושה דברים על פי רבי אליעזר. That he also heard one of those three things from Rabbi Eliezer, ולא מצאתי. I couldn't find. Everybody tells me you're crazy, you're imagining things. He never said such a thing. ואומנם אין הלכה כאחת מהם. And then we see that even though it is mentioned that he heard, and we trust him, this is Rabbi Eli. But since we cannot find other people to collaborate,
he find himself.
Yeah, he also looked. Since he couldn't find anybody else to collaborate those testimony, the halacha is not like it. Ela, so how do we hold? בגינה ובקרקף, we hold that in גינה, in a קרקף, in a garden or in a storeyard, השיעור הוא עד ביצתיים ולא יותר. It's only 70 feet, 70 amma by 70 amma. That's the most.
5,000 square amma.
5,000 square amma. Yeah, a little bit less. And bet, אנשי החצר ששכח אחד מהם ולא עירב, if one of the people in the courtyard did not contribute food, הוא ביטל להם רשותו, and then he nullified his possession, כל זמן שלא פירש מבטל להם אף ביתו, if he did not specify that it's not only the courtyard, it's also the house. אף לשאר הדיירים אסור להכניס ולהוציא ביתו לחצר. Everybody is not permitted to use his property, his house to the courtyard. His property, the yard, they're allowed to, but not his house to the courtyard. הקרבנים אינם מרור, and also this type of weed is not called maror, ואין אדם יוצא בהם ידי חובתו בפסח, and therefore a person cannot do this obligation for maror with these kinds of weeds on Pesach.